Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
My name is Jonah Jung, and these are your news headlines for 3 p.m. There is a beer hitting the shelves in Langley, an all-cap Canadian craft beer from the hops to the barley and all things in between. Our reporter Braden Goodman has more on the story.
Langley's own Dead Frog Brewery is tapping into patriotism with the launch of its new Canada Proud Craft Lager, a refreshing craft beer made entirely from Canadian ingredients. The award-winning brewery is celebrating unity, resilience, and Canadian spirit at a time when national pride is at an all-time high. Aiming to promote unity and community values, the new beer offering is more than just a crisp, homegrown lager. Each can supports local communities with a portion of the proceeds going to the BC Hospitality Foundation and local firefighter charities. Braden Goodman, BCIT News.
Our reporter Braden Goodman joins us now live to give us more updates about the brewery. Braden, what demographic is buying the Canadian Proud Lager? Where are they sourcing their ingredients from? Thank you, Braden. Your questions gave us a lot of updates about what the lager and the brewery is trying to do for the Canadian community. Thank you. More than a week later after Lapu-Lapu Festival tragedy, Premier David Eby says the court will overlook what he said about the alleged suspect. It features him saying the suspect will spend the rest of his goddamn life in jail. He has already apologized for his comments at the House of Commons, saying it was inappropriate. The BC Premier expresses how close he was to the Filipino community.
This is a community that's very close to me. I feel very personally, personally, people who were there, who are directly involved. I think that I have a stronger level of confidence in the independence of the judiciary and their ability to withstand my own feelings about what should happen to this individual. And I'll leave it at that.
UBC Thunderbirds baseball team is headed to the Champions Tournament of their league. Our reporter Thomas Adams has more on their season.
The UBC baseball team is wrapping up their season with the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics Championship Tournament this coming Monday. The team, predominantly composed of Canadian-born players, smashed their way to a 36-17 record in the regular season, led by Richmond-born Johnny McGill, who leads the team in average hits and slugging percentage. The team will look to best their American opponents and claim victory in their league. They will be finding out the city that they will be traveling to play the host team. Thomas Adams, BCIT News.
As the measles outbreak spreads across the province, Ontario Premier Doug Ford defends the province's record against measles. The health data from last week shows 223 new cases took place in Ontario. Most of the cases are located in Mennonite communities in southwestern Ontario. The residents are namely against the vaccination process. Ford expresses concerns about the situation.
But how do you force someone? Do you grab their kid and start jabbing them with a needle? It's a problem. I agree. But we're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at this to make sure we have the vaccines, and we're spending $2 million on promoting getting your kids vaccinated. This is a no-brainer.
As Prime Minister Mark Carney met U.S. President Donald Trump, he says there's more work to be done. Carney says he will stand up for Canada's sovereignty, saying it is a beautiful country. Despite President Trump's threats to make Canada the 51st state, he called Prime Minister Carney a very nice man after the successful end of the meeting. Former Canadian Ambassador Frank McKenna shares his thoughts on Carney's actions.
That is really the proper course for a prime minister to take, to respect the president for the office that he holds, but not to be genuflecting and being obsequious towards him at all.
Next is international news. CEOs of energy companies have made suggestions to Prime Minister Mark Carney about energy development. The list of suggestions includes changing impact assessment process and removing regulations. As Carney says he will boost Canada's energy independence, the industry leaders asked him not to put a limit on oil and gas production. They say the provinces should be setting the regulations. Despite the requests, Carney says the cap on energy will remain. Moving on to the international news, as the Russo-Ukraine war intensifies, former U.S. President Joe Biden criticizes Trump's actions. Sagar Meghani from the Associated Press has more on this issue.
Joe Biden is blasting the Trump administration's proposal to let Russia keep some Ukrainian territory in a bid to reach a peace deal. In his first post-presidential interview, Biden says that amounts to modern-day appeasement, a term referring to allowing Nazi Germany to annex European land in the 1930s. President Trump has said Crimea, which Russia illegally annexed 11 years ago, will stay with Russia. Biden tells BBC Radio 4's Today program he worries U.S.-European relations are eroding under the Trump administration. He says leaving the presidential race 4 months before Election Day was a difficult decision, but making the move earlier, like some critics suggested, would not have mattered. Sagar Meghani at the White House.
4 Canadian Cardinals, Thomas Collins, Gerard Lacroix, Frank Leo, and Michael Zerny, appointed by the late Pope Francis, gather in the Vatican for the conclave. This year, 133 cardinals from different countries, such as Korea, Philippines, Italy, and more, will vote the next Holy Father in the Sistine Chapel. Jean-Paul Vesco, cardinal from Algeria, says this conclave will be in a multicultural harmony. Matthew Furtado, a communications director at the Archdiocese in Vancouver, says the Canadian Cardinals will suggest means to educate people more about Catholicism. A white smoke will come out of the chimney of the Sistine Chapel if the new Pope is elected. As there has never been a Canadian Pope, the Catholic Society in Canada hopes that things will be different this time. As the Catholic churchgoers across the world wait in prayer, a black smoke has come out of the chimney of Sistine Chapel. It means there has not yet been Pope selected by the Cardinals. The smoke came out 4 hours after 133 Cardinals entered the chapel. With no Pope elected for now, the conclave will resume Thursday morning. The conflict between India and Pakistan intensifies as India has fired missiles to Pakistan. Pakistan retaliated by shooting down 6 Indian fighter jets. The conflict started last month as tourists lost their lives in India-controlled Kashmir. Indian government claimed that Pakistan is responsible for the deaths, while the Pakistan denied the claims. 2 countries kicked out diplomats from each other's countries and blocked the border crossing. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif says the country has every right to respond towards this act of war. New Delhi has stated that the attacks did not target civilians, although there have been 26 civilian deaths in Pakistan. The government of Canada has issued an urgent travel advisory for tourists visiting India and Pakistan. As this week is the Emergency Preparedness Week, a week to ensure the safety of yourself and your friends and your families, Ottawa says this year's theme is to be prepared and know the rights. The provincial government plans to have an alert system test today at 1:55 p.m. as a part of the event. It has provided the details for the BC residents, including that they should not call 911 when the alarm rings. They say text message and an alert will be sent to mobile devices, radio, and TV. For today's weather, it is expected to be rainy and cloudy, and more humidity in the air. The BC residents should grab a jacket before leaving the house as the weather is quite different from yesterday. These have been your news updates from 3 p.m. My name is Jonah Jung for BCIT's The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Welcome in to BCIT's The Crow. This is your 12:15 sports update. I'm Elijah Ford, and here is what's been happening across our favorite pastimes. The Abbotsford Canucks are back in action tonight for Game 3 of their best-of-5 series against the Coachella Valley Firebirds. The Canucks return home after splitting the first 2 games in Coachella Valley 1-1. They're hoping to bounce back after a stinging 5-4 overtime loss in Game 2. Head coach Manny Malhotra says Abbotsford offensive depth needs to shine in order for the Canucks to take back control of the series. They could be receiving some help in that area, as budding star Jonathan Lekermacki is likely to return after missing the last 3 games following complications from dental surgery. Puck drop is scheduled for 7 p.m. at the Abbotsford Center. Sticking with local sports, UBC Thunderbirds baseball team is looking to keep rallying against American opponents in their upcoming tournament. Our reporter, Thomas Adams, has more on what it means for them to represent their country.
The UBC Thunderbirds baseball team is headed to the NAIA tournament. This season, a remarkable amount of the team's players are born and raised in Canada. They are looking to prove their ability internationally as the only Canadian team in the tournament. Head coach Chris Pritchett speaks on how these players have been representing their country this season.
It's definitely a sense of representing Canadian baseball that these guys carry with them, as well as our school. So I don't think that hurts when they go down there and feel like there's a bit of an edge and trying to prove that we can play this game pretty well too.
The team will be playing their first game in the tournament on Monday. Thomas Adams, BCIT News.
And we are lucky enough to have our reporter Thomas Adams with us now live to give us more updates on the university baseball team. Tom, whereabouts in Canada do these players come from?
Thank you, Elijah. So UBC is able to attract high-quality talent from the lower mainland, with many of their players coming from Surrey, Richmond, Abbotsford, and they're able to come in and compete at the college level with American teams.
Awesome to hear. And how are they able to find success this season?
Now, a lot of their success comes as bonding together as a team under head coach Chris Pritchett, who has actually played 61 games in the major leagues. He's a very experienced coach and likes to see his players thrive at the college level.
Awesome to hear, Tom. Thank you very much for your time. Sticking with Canadian sports, the CFL has suspended Winnipeg Blue Bombers quarterback Zach Collaros for 1 game for failing to respond to an off-season drug testing request. The league announced Wednesday officials with the Canadian Centre for Ethics in Sport twice tried to reach Collaros by phone and another time via email over a 2-hour period. It added Collaros, age 36, failed to respond within 24 hours, which would usually result in a 2-game suspension. The league said after a review, it shortened the suspension to 1 game, citing extenuating circumstances. Winnipeg kicks off its 2025 season, hosting the BC Lions on June 12th. In international soccer, PSG weathered one attack over another and showed remarkable adaptability to hold off and defeat an inspired Arsenal 2-1 to reach the Champions League final on Wednesday. Deprived of the ball possession it so often enjoys, PSG looked in trouble early on, but found the right answers to hurt the Gunners. It relied on counter-attacking football and an excellent Gianluigi Donnarumma to prevail, advancing 3-1 on aggregate. Fabian Ruiz broke the deadlock in the 27th minute for PSG. Ashraf Hakimi curled in a precise finish in the 72nd minute to make it 2-0 before Bukayo Saka pulled 1 back for the Gunners. PSG will take on Inter Milan on May 31st. A woman is suing former Los Angeles Lakers player and coach Byron Scott, accusing him of sexually assaulting her during a team event at a high school in 1987 when she was 26 and she was 15. The lawsuit was first filed in December 22 and amended May 1st. The amended complaint names Scott publicly for the first time and accuses him of sexual battery and false imprisonment. It says the alleged victim was attending summer classes when she was assaulted by Scott in a janitor closet. Scott said through an attorney Wednesday he does not deny the sexual contact occurred, but maintains he thought she was of legal age. The Blue Jays play tonight against the LA Angels. Former Blue Jays pitcher Yusei Kikuchi is expected to start against his former team. Thank you for listening to BCIT's The Crow. I've been Elijah Ford and your sports update.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane.